Good day, viewers. My name is Walter. I'm better known online as Pwalpar. I'm going to create a few YouTube videos, and occasionally I'll take time to share a story or two with you. So today I'm going to share a story with you that I just got through writing. I do hope you're all having a good day. Your video comments are most welcome here.
On today's vlog, Walter is going to tell you a true story he wrote entitled, Remember the Space Race.
All systems are go. We're ready for launch. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. This story is not explosive. Hope you'll give it a listen.
A Pwalpar story. Remember the Space Race. My name is Walter. I am known better online as Pwalpar, where I am a creator on YouTube. Occasionally, I take a notion to tell a story. Today is October 15th, 2025. I decided this morning it's time to tell another story. So here I sit at my computer desk writing the story as it comes to my mind. I never plan ahead when I start a story. I just dig around in my 78-year-old brain among my many and sometimes jumbled up memories for fodder for the story at hand. So let us begin. As a child, I lived in Brevard County, Florida from the age of 9 or 10 until I was 18 years old. I left for the Navy and never lived there again. I will talk today about the space race. The United States and the Soviet Union were competing for superiority in spaceflight. I mentioned Brevard County because it is the county where Cape Canaveral was, or is. Mostly they say Kennedy Space Center now. In my mind, it will always be known as Cape Canaveral. People who lived in the county only had to look up to watch the missiles roar into the sky. Many a day we watched on TV until they took to the sky. Then we would run outside and watch them soar into the wild blue yonder. We got to where we knew when to expect to see the second stage separate from the first stage and disappear into outer space. I recall those missiles would sometimes explode in mid-flight. I witnessed one in particular with my own 2 eyes as a Vanguard missile exploded. Actually, they referred to Vanguard as a 3-stage rocket. It was during an outdoor activity for physical education at E. Gully Junior High School, Aweigh, on a very beautiful clear day. We were playing soccer. The game stopped as we all watched it soaring up in the sky with a huge vapor trail exhausting behind it. I was gazing right at it and thinking, wow, what an amazing sight. 1 second it was there, and the next it became a huge fireball and was no more. It's one thing to see an event like that on TV or in the movies, but believe me, when you actually witness such an event, it's burned into your memory. I witnessed many missile launches, but that one I remember well. Back then, everyone expected that we might be annihilated by nuclear bombs any day now. They taught us to get under our desks and take cover from flying glass and such. People all over the country were building bomb shelters so they might survive. Our teachers, and those who actually believed we might survive, were far more ignorant than we children were. You could hide under 10 desks and it wouldn't help you. The building and trees and virtually everything would cease to exist. Those in bomb shelters wouldn't be around too long. If the blast and gamma radiation didn't get you, then the alpha and beta radiation would soon finish you off. If they survived long enough to come out of this shelter, they would find nothing outside worth living for, and they would probably be wondering, why the hell is my skin falling off? Or perhaps wondering why their nose fell off, or why they have a sudden urge to eat dirt. In 1957, Walter Cronkite reported on the evening news that the Soviet Union had launched a satellite called Sputnik. They played for us the sound of it going beep, 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 beep. That news scared the hell out of most Americans. We went outside to see it fly over the house. Yes, we saw a light fly across the night sky. We were unaware at the time. The only thing that damn Sputnik was capable of was making that beep, 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 beep noise. Y'all watch out. The Russians are gonna get us. In those days, you could trust what Walter had to say, because it was the truth. These days, no one believes even half the news that is reported to us, or if any of it is the truth. I strongly suspect many news agencies now are just political puppets, spreading hate and distrust, and manipulating as many viewers as possible to a far-left way of thinking. Then in 1961, the Soviet Union launched the first human into orbit. His name was Yuri Gagarin. I think sometime around then, we may have sent a monkey up there, after the Russians sent a dog. I think the monkey was recovered and returned, but that poor dog is still up there, sailing off into infinity. His last thoughts probably were, when the hell do I get any food? And I need to pee, but I don't see any grass out there. In September 12, 1962, President John F. Kennedy was at Rice University in Houston, Texas, when he said, "We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard, because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills, because that challenge is one we are willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one which we intend to win." I was in high school at the time. People scoffed and said, "No way we can't do that." I remember making a $10 bet with a fellow student that we would do it. I was right. We accomplished that goal July 16, 1969. I never collected my $10 because I was in the Navy when we landed on the moon. I watched it on TV on my ship at the time, the USS Dominant.
MSO. 2 months after Kennedy's historic speech, the Cuban Missile Crisis occurred in November 1962. The internet would tell you that it occurred over a short period of time, but in reality, it has never ended. It continues today, only in an expanded way. A lot of countries are in the space race now. That was probably the closest we ever came to nuclear war. Kennedy didn't bluff easy, and Khrushchev backed down when Kennedy ordered him to move the missiles out of Cuba immediately, or we would invade Cuba and do it ourselves. I was in the 10th grade in high school when Kennedy was assassinated. It was November 22nd, 1963. I guess a lot of people my age likely never forget where we were when we heard the news. I do recall the country went into mourning. For days and days, all you saw on television was coverage of the Kennedy news. Many young people may not believe that, but they probably do not realize all we had at the time was 3 channels to choose from. Kennedy never got to see it, and I never collected my $10. The Cuban Missile Crisis continued for years. I joined the U.S. Navy in 1965. You might wonder, as I did, where I would wind up. I'll tell you. We were most often cruising off the coast of Cuba, sometimes so close I could see the birds flying around among the palm trees. We cruised the Cuban coast for weeks at a time, challenging cargo ships to see what they were hauling into Cuba. We would put into port for a while at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, so some other ship could do their time patrolling the coast. More than once, we had confrontations with the Cuban Navy when they confronted us with gunboats and torpedo boats. I will relate one such occurrence. We were about 3 miles offshore. It was late in the day when the sun was going down. We were approached by 2 what looked to me like PT boats. Their crews were on deck. All of them were armed with weapons. So some of us took arms. I stood on the forecastle of the USS Chicana holding a loaded M1 rifle. I recall thinking, if I have to shoot, I'm going to aim for that fat SOB on the closest boat. He was standing behind a big 50 caliber machine gun. Our ship had a 20mm cannon, which is an awesome weapon, but not in the same category as automatic machine guns. We used it mostly for shooting mines that would pop up when we were minesweeping. I never had to shoot that day because our captain, Lieutenant Commander Sovic, called their bluff. It was getting almost dark. We shined our spotlight on the American flag flying from the ship's mast. We stood there on deck ready for anything. Within just a few minutes, we had U.S. Navy jets flying over us that were called out from Key West, Florida. The Cubans backed down and started to move away. I felt a rush of relief, and I thought, that fat guy don't know how lucky he was. I really doubt I would have missed him if I had to shoot at him. For years and years, billions of dollars and much time has been spent to expand the space age. America, in particular, has spent money like it was cheap as toilet paper, that there was no end to its supply. Along comes a brilliant entrepreneur by the name of Elon Musk, and on a shoestring budget, he has created a company that outshines them all, while NASA spends billions on rockets that only get used once. He builds a much cheaper type of rocket that can be repeatedly used again and again. One of his Starlink satellite dishes is in my yard, supplying me with excellent internet service that I currently need. It irks me no end when I think of the money that I spent in the past on company name omitted, weak and inadequately supplied internet service, but I digress. The other day, Spacex, that monster spaceship, proved what can be done. While other countries and various companies lag behind, he sent that spaceship into suborbital space, flew it to the other side of the world, landed it perfectly within 10 feet of where he wanted it, out in the Indian Ocean. He had buoys out there with cameras attached to some of his Starlink dishes, and they filmed its awesome vertical landing. I'm sure he has more defects to fix and things to figure out to make his ship fly better, but he has done what all said can't be done. Viewers, my final thoughts in today's vlog are these. One final prediction from me to the world. I predict the space race will never end, and furthermore, I truly believe that Elon's company will iron out their problems and be the first to fly to the moon. And I predict he will do it before the end of the decade. I won't be here when it happens, but mankind will fly to Mars, and it will be in the next 25 years. Thanks for listening. Y'all take care. It's Pwalpar wishing all my viewers well. Oh my goodness. I don't think I want to go to Mars, Walter. Have a nice trip, Gene. We'll see you when you get back.